How would you feel about school taking up an extra hour every day to teach basic adult stuff like washing clothes, basic cooking, paying taxes? My rural school did this in the zeros: home ec, sewing, taxes, cooking, woodworking, etc. Could even get into metal working, accounting, quilting, pottery, etc. if you wanted to. My school did the same. I was a good student, but at that age you just don't realize the valuable information they were giving you. You kept the information long enough to pass the tests, and then you went and got alcohol poisoning in a field while your parents thought you were a movie with Nicole and Beckett. My home ec class had groups of 3 students try to make one pot of spaghetti, and every single group's spaghetti was inedible in different ways, and it made me afraid to try cooking again. We have this in Sweden. Sewing and woodworking are the 2 options of crafting class. You get to try both and then pick one to stick with. We have hemkunskap, maybe it is called something different now. This is middle school, junior high stuff, and I'm 30 this year, so been a while. Directly translating to home knowledge where, at least when I did it, mostly did cooking. But there was some classes and tests on washing clothes, cleaning and such things. Some home economy as well. There was nothing on taxes a fake. But here I pay taxes by logging into our equivalent of the ERS website and press a button. Deleted. My school had a class like that. Most of the classmates didn't pay attention and now complain 10 years later that they never learned about taxes and credit card interest. Also, some parents were super upset about the school overstepping their boundaries by teaching basic budgeting. I can't imagine that situation has gotten any better in the last 10 years. I'm not against the class being taught, but at the end of the day you have to realize that all that stuff is easily learned once you are an adult, with just a minimum amount of research. If someone isn't taking the 15 minutes it takes to learn how to wash their clothes properly or watch a YouTube video for a basic recipe as an adult when they actually need to do those things to function, no way in hell to teen would they pay attention to a class that tried to teach them that. It is still a good idea to have the class, but it isn't some magical fix everyone seems to think it is. I am against the adding an extra hour of school though on top of regular school though. People love to parrot this idea. I promise you that for 90% of students it won't be any different from any other class. They just won't care. We don't need a wild class to teach us how to do laundry. Basic operation of the machine takes like 2 minutes to learn. There's even picture instructions on machines. Exactly, we had budgeting and taxes included in our mandatory maths classes. 90 now complain about not learning any real-life skills. We also had mandatory cooking. And even though we learned a lot, there was much sexism going around to avoid working. 14-year-old boys suck and will use any excuse. So I guess not everyone learnt anything there. This is the real issue every time this comes up and why I'm against it. On top of that, this is the information age. You don't need to be a wizard to figure stuff out when it's literally all at your fingertips. Go ahead and Google how do I wash my clothes and you can undoubtedly find hours of YouTube videos demonstrating exactly that. People need to take the tiniest bit of initiative and not just expect it all to be spoon-fed. I'd be opposed to the extra hour, but not the activities. School was already an 8-hour-a-day thing. Pushing it up to 9 hours means it actually becomes longer than a full-time job. And that's before you get to homework and shit like that. If anything, the school day should be shorter, or keep it 8 hours in the building, but leave 2 or 3 of those for students to work on homework with a teacher around when they need help, guidance, or just for them to socialize in a somewhat structured way. Expecting kids' teens to maintain any level of engagement and discipline for 8 hours straight is psychotic. It is a system built by nerds and sadists. Well, really? It is 6 hours in Australia, and I kind of just assumed it was the same everywhere. Let's be real. It is already pushing overtime every single week. We just had to take our work home with us and spend an hour or more working on it every night. Hell, some kids push 50 hours every week. I agree, it could be done as an elective. These are things that could and should be taught by parents, but they aren't things all parents know, and not all kids have parents who would take the time to teach them either way. It should be available for kids who want it, but not required, and certainly not adding an extra hour to the school day. Also, I'd like to point out the fact that there are tons of people like me who were slackers their last year or more of high school, and had several free periods that could have been taken up by a class like this. They do it already. It is called life skills here. Edit. 8 hours, it is only 6 here and we get it done. Oh, if you wasting 3 hours on every day. More classes, from what I remember. When I was in school in the USA during like my 2nd or 3rd year, they added another class to the schedule. So we were learning from 7 different classes then. Don't remember much of it now. Not even what classes they all were. Lol. You got an hour each for the core classes. Social studies, geography, history, government, etc., math, English, and science. Next you have a PE, or health class, and a single elective. Then you have 10 minutes to get from one class to the next, and you are up to 7 hours. Schools have these already and the kids in them don't care. It is not immediately relevant to their lives, so they don't pay attention. Sorta like if I were to talk to you about the do's and don'ts of denture cream. You say, I'll figure it out later when I need to know it, and stop paying attention. I've taught in several schools that have tried to teach social skills, kindness, meditation, financial literacy, etc. In every case, the kids did not care. It was their least favorite part of the day because it felt like a waste of time. The point of education is to teach thinking, not doing. A well-educated student can teach themselves these things. A quick Google search can teach you how to file taxes, cook, etc. But you can't Google how to do algebra too and expect to understand what you read without some background in the subject matter. Edit. I got up votes. Now I'm mad with power, so I'll say this. I hear arguments like this post all the time, and I think the real issue is people not taking responsibility. I can't cook. That must be the school's fault. We need education reform. No, it is not the school's fault. It is your fault. You could literally Google a recipe in 20 seconds. Stop blaming other people for your problems. People don't realize that the point of education isn't to teach facts, but to change your brain. For example, physics and math majors earn the highest scores in them CAT, MAT, and SET. It is not because they learned those things in class, but because their curriculum emphasizes logical thinking. When students slack in schoolwork, they were not just missing out on the opportunity to know stuff. They were missing out on the opportunity to be smarter. The point of education is to teach thinking, not doing. That's a fair point. My science classes definitely have helped with cooking, as they taught problem solving and analysis, which is very useful when you need to rescue a recipe or want to experiment. People don't understand that education is more about developing the brain rather than retaining knowledge. You can easily obtain knowledge from reading a book or watching videos, but education forces you to do stuff like read and write a lot or practice a lot of math problems. Those tasks help develop the brain and develop critical thinking skills. Even undergrad programs in engineering are not really meant to retain knowledge. They are meant to wire the brain to think like an engineer. Most of your knowledge in engineering is going to come from training you receive in industry and just working in projects in industry. My public school had classes that teach these things. I graduated high school a decade ago. I took home economics and learned how to cook. I took financial literacy to learn about taxes and budgeting and investing. Is Utah just way ahead of the other states, or is this a made-up issue? I've seen people that took these classes at my school post memes about not learning how to pay taxes and shit. I wonder if the real problem is that nobody remembers this stuff because they teach it to you when it isn't relevant to your life. I graduated from a Utah high school in 2019. Financial literacy was very much a requirement. Although I thought the subject matter taught was very broad, I think the majority of people who claim that schools never taught them these skills never paid attention in class. Ashmisen one day ago, people are just lazy and want to blame their laziness on the system not teaching them. Like any tax system, like TurboTax, walks you literally step by step through the process. You don't need to know anything about taxes and just run through their software and you will be done. If they teach it in school, it is going to need no more than a single hour to teach the basic 1099, and of course there's no point to teach the advanced stuff when 80 of adults don't even use those forms. Who is going to remember an hour of anything mixed with the thousands of hours of math, science, history, English we learn in school? That's just home ec. My home ec class was baking cookies and eating them in the next class. I can't remember anything else. My wife teaches this. People like the op are super common. Teachers in her staff room had a discussion about the need for life skills, and she had to explain that is what her subject is. Problem is, a lot of people think home ec is the baking class. Students get upset when they have to learn about mortgage applications and buying food on a budget. Your grandparents had home economics classes for the girls and shop trades classes for the boys. Every once in a while a member of the opposite sex would sign up for and take the wrong class. Too much humor. They don't teach home ec or have shop classes anymore. No. My high school does not have a home ec class and has not had one for years. It used to have a woodshop class up until a few years ago, but the old superintendent of the district was a hardcore penny pincher cost saver, so he got rid of woodshop and a bunch of other more expensive classes. Closest thing to home ec is a garden to kitchen class at the middle school, which I took for 2 semesters and was one of the most useful classes I had at the time. Some schools are getting rid of this because they were putting more emphasis on testable, quantifiable info. Things like shop, art, and music are considered frivolous and silly. I remember years ago even grade schools were starting to do away with recess. My middle school and high school had home ec, no shop at school, but there was a career center you could go to as part of your electives and do woodworking or welding. Many schools still have home ec, but it's an elective and most students don't want to take it over another class. I had half a year of home ec, then half a year of shop. I always thought this made the most sense. It is not like boys would never ever need to cook or fix a ripped sheet, and girls would never need to learn the basics of changing bulbs, not touching the live wire. It's our simplirables. 23 hours ago our school only had a woodworking class, and it was an elective option. I think that they already waste enough time, and it would be worse for kids whose parents already taught them that stuff. Washing clothes is really a 20-minute lesson, and cooking taxes have their own elective classes already. I suggest it should be an elective course, which is more or less a training course for most things on it. You get a big list of life skills and basic knowledge at the start, and each class you cover something on it, the goal being to make sure every student in the class has at least done these things once in their lives, even if their parents never teach them. The washing machine example is a pretty lightweight one, though the number of university college students who take their laundry home on the weekend suggests it to be useful. More useful would be a basic grounding in taxes, stocks and shares, voting, loans and such like. For my part, I always assumed I'd have to spend an evening at least once a year poring over all the things I've bought, figuring out what tax I owed. Turns out, here in the UC, all that tax is included in the purchase, and all my income tax is taken before I receive my paycheck. So I actually don't have to do anything normally because I'm not a business owner. As I understand it, in the States you actually do have to file a tax return every year and know what you owe. It is a complex thing and there are consequences for screwing it up. I'd be very grateful for a basic class on the subject, one where the teacher puts an actual tax form down on my desk and runs through what's involved and answers questions. Washing clothes. So you put the clothes in some detergent, push a button, then dryer, then a hanger. If you can't figure out washing clothes or cooking on your own, definitely shouldn't be allowed to drive. Taxes, debt, and personal finance is something that should be taught. A kid at my college brought a box full of pre-measured Ziplocs of laundry detergent that had printed directions in every bag. Like, I want to believe washing clothes is easy, but then I'd see him in the laundry room reading the directions every time. This used to be called home ec and most schools had it. Then boomers did away with it because it cost too much. Now they make fun of young people for not knowing things they would have learned in home ecs. In my high school, home ec was for girls and all the guys took wood shop. I'd spent a few hours a weekend helping my dad build stuff since I was little, and I decided I'd rather hang out with girls for an hour than build a birdhouse or something. Best decision ever. We made cakes, learned how to negotiate rent, and sewed clothing. It wasn't exactly academically challenging, but it was a lot of fun. No regrets at all on that one. Many schools still have home ec, however, for most students it's an elective, and many of them don't want to take it over something else. Home economics in most schools taught cooking and sewing, not actual economics stuff like establishing a budget, understanding how stocks and dollar cost averaging investment works, or how crippling credit card debt is. If you learned any of that at all, it was usually a unit in math class. Source: Jen Scher, who learned how to make a pizza from scratch and sew a pillow in home ec. Sagas 25 hours ago then boomers did away with it because it was a stupid waste of time that only idiots took when they needed the grade and nobody actually learned anything valuable from 47 reply share report save. I am opposed to it. There's no reason parents can teach these things to their kids while doing said tasks. School isn't responsible for every single thing. Also, with the internet, if a parent doesn't know changing a tire, for example, they can easily learn. Yup, school can't teach literally everything. Most of what you need to learn outside of school can be done with skills you get in school. Laundry and basic cooking isn't that hard as long as you have the skills to complete high school. I think it should be optional because not everyone has a parental figure that will teach these things though. The thing is, that this might help break the cycle where kids don't have parents that care to teach them. And these often are parents that, if they don't know how to do X thing, will not try to learn it in order to teach their kids. It could be helpful for kids with neglectful, otherwise abusive parents. I could certainly see this as a useful subject for like 1 or 2 years, an hour a week. But also today I learned that school lasts 8 hours in many places. Here it is 6 hours in most schools plus homework. Some don't have parents or a function adult figure in their life. Ginger Ninja 25 hours ago. Not everyone is lucky enough to have parents or any legal guardian. 49 reply share report 7 or replies. This is all stuff anyone would be able to get info online or ask somebody at home. Hey, mom, how do you write a check, boil an egg, change a tire, get your prescriptions filled? Here's the deal about the whole paying taxes thing. It changes every single year. By design, taxes are hard. They don't need to be. But they are. Teach critical thinking and reading comprehension instead. Deleted. Also, some countries have fairly simple taxes that are taken out of our wages. Only self-employed people and business owners need to do taxes. Dude, they already teach math and how to read directions. Plus, you have the entire human knowledge at your fingertips. How about we don't waste precious time walling people through basic shit they have already been taught the foundations of and spend more time on teaching more complex idea skills that can be quickly learned by reading short directions. Sorry if this comes off sounding mean, but it is so ridiculous to ask what you did. Those are the things that a competent parent should teach their child. Agreed. And not all of us have competent parents. True, but there are a lot of things parents don't know, especially when it comes to money. How to budget, how to take advantage of a 400 wonk, the difference between a Roth and traditional era, how to invest. Then there are things that could really help a young student, like how to meal prep, how to shop for groceries to make multiple meals, how to vet a potential roommate. Kids spend 12 hours just learning how to take tests and are rarely prepared for the real world. Assuming parents know this stuff, this thinking contributes to the cycle of economic disadvantage being so hard to break out of across generations. A small investment, making sure all kids are introduced to the impact of credit card debt, and the power of starting early with even a tiny amount of retirement savings can have a huge impact in adults who are financially secure as they approach retirement. Kabungad 1 day ago. I do realize having a competent parent is a privilege. 18 reply share report save continue this thread or replies. Nope. Parents have to take some responsibility for having kids, too. Also, cooking has largely been dropped from curriculums mainly because of the danger in it. Kid drops chicken on the dirty floor and picks it up quickly. Kid knocks boiling water off the stove. Schools would be sued quite quickly. Tax? Yee. But wouldn't it be better to teach kids about how governments use their tax? Actually, the foods classes get cut because of the cost. I teach foods classes. Kids take it seriously because they don't want to get sick or injured and they want food. Safety and sanitation are the first things they learn. Schools have insurance for injuries. It's no different than a kid breaking an arm at recess. Sure, 17 hours ago. Parents have to take some responsibility for having kids, too. But what if they don't? This is a serious problem. What do we do when a parent isn't so neglectful that the kid is dying, but also isn't doing anything more than the bare minimum of food and shelter? We can say that parents should take responsibility, and they should, but just saying that doesn't mean they will. Their innocent children will suffer from their negligence, and we offer them no help. 5. Replay, share, report, save, continue this thread. It is so funny how many of you think that kids will actually be interested in learning about taxes, stocks, etc. In what world do you think high schoolers would be attentive in a class about budgeting taxes? Have any of you met high school kids before? I remember we were taught about taxes and personal finances in school when I was like 15 or something. Retained none of it, and when I became an adult I taught myself from scratch through Google. I think it is ridiculous that washing clothes and basic cooking would be considered adult stuff. These are all things I learned at home and was doing for myself by high school. Are people's parents really just doing all this for them? Hard to believe. But some parents wouldn't teach their kids. I know I had trouble learning domestic tasks from my mother because when I would try to help out around the house, whatever I did it wasn't done right. I know there are many who share my experience. Dude, I knew people in high school whose parents still did their laundry and made their lunches. I've been doing that since I was in like 6th grade. This was my immediate thought going into this thread. Do people not learn this shit on their own? It is nearly impossible to fuck up washing clothes, and you can Google any recipe in the world. If you can't at least manage a microwave, you're lost. I can kinda understand taxes, but even that's something that you can Google and learn by necessity the second you get a job. Sounds like what's missing here isn't the formal schooling. It is independence and self-reliance. Namyarg 622 hours Agami parents taught me how to do it, but did it for me most of the time. It was just easier to wash clothes and cook for everyone in the household at the same time. You actually had to wash your clothes separately. 10. Reply, share, report, save, continue this thread. Japanese schools do this to a degree. The students are responsible for cleaning the classroom and serving lunch to their classmates. I think it would be a great idea if well explained and supported by the community. Otherwise, the school risks parents going bananas. Think Karens and who knows what. In a lot of Japanese schools, students are required to take home ec classes where they learn how to sew, cook, etc. It's actually really fun making curry with your classmates.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.